Ah, Legendary. A game panned by just about everyone. And is that really a surprise? I mean, come on, it comes from a company called Gamecock. Gamecock. I don't care that there's a picture of a rooster there. That's like naming your company Asshole Games and slapping on a picture of a donkey. That doesn't make it sound any less stupid. Basically, you're some thief by the name of Deckard something. Deckard is a late 20s brown-haired, brown-eyed mute male. Boy, that sure as hell has never been done before. Breaking new ground, I see. Anyway, you're hired by some super secret organization to steal the just found Pandora's box from some museum. This organization is run by this man. Surely he can't be the villain of this game. He doesn't look suspicious at all. And his name is LaFay? Really? Are you serious? Did you even try at all? Let me guess what other names were on the drawing board. Alistar Crowney? Anyway, in the process of stealing it, you end up activating it. And instead of unleashing all the boring stuff like despair and agony that we keep hearing about in ancient stories, it instead unleashes all these cool things like mythological creatures and werewolves and griffins and other stuff. Turns out, LaFay expected you to die, and he only wanted the box so he could control the world. Needless to say, all hell breaks loose. Literally. And another super secret organization that has been battling LaFay's group all this time joins you in your journey to set things right. The hilarious thing is that these creatures appear all over the world. Both of these secret organizations appear to have seemingly endless amounts of their own troops. But where the hell are the armies? The game takes place in New York City and London, and aside from the few cops you see early in the game, there's no real presence fighting these monsters except your own group. Is the entire US Army in Iraq and Afghanistan or something? The first few levels of Legendary reminded me of a very similar game. It's called Turning Point: Fall of Liberty, and is one of the worst games I've ever played in my life. It takes place in some alternate universe where World War II never ended and now the Nazis are invading America. The first level is just like this one. One big on-rails scripted segment where you just run around watching shit explode. I stopped playing that game a few levels in once I realized the enemy snipers were shooting me through walls. Turns out they were developed by the same guys, a development studio called Spark Unlimited that even came out in the same year. Some people think that their favorite developers are infallible, and whenever they make a bad product, it's the publisher's fault or it's due to budget constraints. Here's some history behind Spark Unlimited. These guys were behind the original Medal of Honor games for the PS1 and PC. All of these, well, just about all of them, were critically acclaimed titles. So what exactly happened? Absolutely nothing. Spark must take great pride in doing the same thing over and over and over again for over a decade. Ever play Medal of Honor Frontline for the PS2? I did. I bought it the day it came out. It was one of the most boring, disappointing games I've ever played. The first two levels were awesome. You felt like you were playing the opening sequence of Saving Private Ryan. Of course, it was totally scripted and on rails, but it really looked cool at the time. The rest of the game, however, was just walking in a straight line, mowing down Nazis. First-person shooter games haven't evolved as some people may like to think. All they have done was simply take the scripted explosive intro and copy-paste it several times over until the end. So instead of walking in a straight line mowing down generic enemies, you're now walking in a straight line mowing generic enemies with cutscenes and voice acting going on. Battlefield, Call of Duty, and I hate to say this, but even Metro 2033 are all guilty of this. Legendary is no different. Take the generic campaigns of the Call of Duty series, replace the random Russians or Arabs, whoever you're fighting with, replace them with werewolves, and there you go, you have Legendary. This game is so scripted it's unbelievable. In the first level you cannot crouch, jump, or sprint until a message prompt appears telling you to do so. Jesus Christ, really? Games have been doing this for over a decade. It's never been cool or fun. It's not fun not being able to proceed until the game allows you to do so. Unless I'm given a minigun to mow down these fucking griffins, there's absolutely no point in having this level in the game. The rest of Legendary, as you can imagine, is identical to the other generic shooters out there. Walk in a straight line and kill stuff. Every now and then you come across an objective to complete, which revolves around defending an ally while he pretends he's doing something, or solve a puzzle yourself. During either scenario, enemies spawn indefinitely until you complete the objective, a la Call of Duty. Gee, that sure sounds fun. The movement is weird and unnatural. When a werewolf swipes at you, the whole screen moves to the side before coming back. It feels like you're a punching bag. Doing a running jump? It shouldn't even be called a running jump. It's more like a cheetah leaping at its prey. And sometimes, it just bugs the fuck up completely. And what the hell is with this voice acting? Holy shit, I mean, most of it is serviceable, but the majority of it goes to these walkie-talkies or whatever the hell they use to communicate between each other. I mean, does this sound like any communication device you've heard of? It sounds like they decided to process the voice through some robotic filter or whatever. The combat is unsatisfying for a number of reasons. There's a lack of enemy variety, a lack of weapon variety, and the weapons themselves sound and feel like shit. There's only 3 common enemies you face. Sonic the Hedgehog, who's on fire, werewolves, and these fairies that warp in and out of existence. The human enemies you face are all completely identical to each other, except sometimes one of them has a flamethrower. As for all the griffins you saw in the first level, you face one halfway through the game, and maybe another 1 or 2 before the game ends. The rest you just kill immediately with a rocket launcher that locks on automatically. There's also these exploding face huggers from aliens, and an alpha werewolf who takes more damage because he has hair. And there are a few minotaurs who, like the griffins, pretty much serve as rare mini-bosses. The enemies all need to be killed in a special way, but it's more frustrating than it is challenging or creative. Those guys on fire spawn endlessly until you find a sprinkler and turn it on, which makes the lava go away. For those fairies, you need to stand still and wait until they materialize, otherwise you can't harm them. And the werewolves regenerate health until you blow their heads off. Legendary takes itself way too seriously. The intro cutscene of Deckard stealing the box is like 3 minutes long. There's also a special prologue cutscene available in the main menu. Every time you run into a new character, you get a message about them in your PDA. You constantly find these little emails and text messages that are only 2 to 3 sentences long. Yet the developers decided to dedicate a whole screen to it. Hell, there's even a whole section of a level where you run around your ally's base simply reading information. And what the fuck is up with this guy? Does he have delirium tremens or something? The game isn't challenging, it's just cheap and unfair. There are no quick saves, only checkpoints. The last section of the game lasts around 15 minutes, with infinite werewolves and enemy soldiers spawning. And it doesn't even save once, yet it expects you to complete 4 various objectives. Fuck you. Who the hell thought this was a good idea? The creatures themselves don't possess much of a threat. Hell, you can take plenty of hits from this griffin here. But the humans are the big problem. It's like they all have aimbots. They seriously do. They land pretty much every shot if you're out in the open. And the guy with the flamethrower can take you out immediately. I already talked about the voice acting and the piss-poor sound effects for the guns. But I do like the music. It's pretty generic loud metal, but it fits the game. It's appropriate and it sounds good. The graphics themselves are average. They're adequate compared to other games released in 2008. You can't tweak them though. There's just an overall preset that ranges from very low to very high. You can't edit anything. That's simply ridiculous. I'm baffled. Legendary has a 2-weapon system, but thankfully no regenerating health. There's a decent little gimmick here where you collect the souls of the creatures you kill, and you use that to restore your health. One feature I do like is the objective marker only shows up if you hold down the Q button. This is great. There's so many shitty linear games out there, like the recent Aliens vs. Predator and Warhammer 40k Space Marine, where you can only move forward in only one direction. Yet they have the audacity to shine this objective waypoint in your face. I can't believe this game actually got something right. There are issues though, as you can probably expect from the general quality of this game, pretty big ones. One of them is, well, your crosshair is red when it's over an enemy, even if the enemy is dead, and even if it's one of its limbs. Really? There's a major bug near the end of the game where your character falls through the elevator's floor and you can't proceed. The only way to fix this is to limit the game's maximum frame rate. You can do this through the ini file. I didn't experience this since I was obviously recording with Fraps, which I set to a 30 frames per second limit. The last issue is the game's support for keyboards with LCD displays, such as the Logitech G15. The game takes over the window and doesn't allow you to switch between the various other things you have on the LCD. It doesn't even give you any useful information, just a weapon you're currently holding and the amount of ammo it has. Worst of all, it completely destroys the game's performance. I was getting 25 to 35 FPS. I don't know what they did to fuck this up, but to fix this, you need to go to Control Panel, then to Device Manager. Go to the tab that says Human Interface Devices and disable every single HID compliant device you have. Your keyboard will still work, but the LCD controls will be disabled. My frame rate went up to 180 after this. Of course, it's extremely annoying having to disable or re-enable this shit whenever launching or exiting the game. If this is an issue for you, then fear not, since the game is only 5 hours long. That's right, 5 hours, with no replay value whatsoever. The best part is that the game ends with a sequel in mind. Gee, what happened? It's 3.5 years later. Where's this amazing sequel we've all been waiting for? To conclude, if you look up the word average in the dictionary, you should see a picture of Legendary right there. Legendary is not a terrible game, as most people like to say it is. It's just completely average in every shape and form. All I really wanted, honestly, was a dumb shooter that would let me kill hordes of werewolves and griffins with modern weapons. Instead, I got a semi-futuristic Call of Duty clone with few enemies. Legendary is like the kid in school, who only does just enough work to pass the class, and nothing more. It takes an interesting concept, but slaps it onto a very boring, uninteresting style of FPS. I mean, seriously, who the hell out there actually enjoyed the single-player portion of Homefront? I'm not gonna lie, I did have some fun with this game, despite it not being very good. It's definitely better than Duke Nukem Forever, but that's not really saying much. If you're interested, pick it up for no more than $5 during a Steam sale, but I can't really recommend it. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.